someone asked me if I was your tour manager in Hull at the City of Culture bid. And then I got in the car and said, someone just asked me if I'm your tour manager. And you said, yeah, do you want to be my tour manager? And I said, yeah, go on then. What's that? I cover the logistics of a tour. I make it so that the comedian's job is to get there, go on stage, do the show and come off and they haven't got to worry about a thing. Like Alfred to Bruce Wayne.
So I remember meeting you in I think a burger restaurant, and you served me a burger and I think a bottle of Big Wave. And at that point, you were a sort of worthless person, I would say, just sort of wandering in the streets of Birmingham and Worcester, achieving very little.
Thank you.
And I dragged you from that gutter, and here we are today. I don't remember 10 years ago or 9 years ago when we met that you were taking photos.
I don't think I was.
No. When did this mess start?
I remember taking videos of you when we went to Reading and Leeds, and I remember taking photos of stuff being like, this is cool that I'm at this. Like, this is worth documenting. Once I realised that you were a famous celebrity and I could get something from you, I thought there's a limit to this before he goes, oh, I hate him.
Yeah.
He's unbearable.
Yeah. We're about to reach that limit. So.
And here we are.
Here we are at the finale.
I think there's just a desire to just catalogue everything. I think it does stem from, I want proof that I've got a good life.
Your legacy almost.
A legacy, yeah. When I was younger and more vain, I remember thinking, people better bloody remember me. And I remember thinking about my dad, after my dad had died, being like, what was he doing when he was like 30? And he'd tell me things, but if you can see it, you get more of a thing for it. There was a point where people stopped talking about it when people die. My dad's been dead like 15 years, but there was a point where I was like, well, no one's asked me about that anymore. No one's said anything to me about my dad anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, your legacy isn't in stuff, it's in the impact that you make. And I think I wanted to prove it, but I wanted to be able to say, I do something important, I am important. You'll be Jim Davidson in 20 years, but...
You could have gone so many different directions there. I'm so glad Jim Davidson.
Yeah, I was going to go Graham Norton, but... I thought that was too much of an ego boost for you. Look at that
Jim Davidson's fine.
There was a sort of year with you where I couldn't believe my luck. I didn't sort of believe it. So like, I remember driving with you and you saying, it's okay, like you can say no if you want to, and thinking... And then you were like, do you want to come to Australia? And I was like, you're going to pay me? And being like...
Yeah.
My iPhone was I took photos of everything. Going to McDonald's, photos of us on escalators, meeting all the mental people. I was in the Melbourne Festival bar with you, and Phil Jupitus was there, and I was very excited because I'm a big fan. And I asked Phil Jupitus for a photo under the guise of it's to send my mother because she'll be impressed. But it wasn't, it was for me. And then I think a few days later, we were just with him all the time. And I remember thinking, oh God, he thinks I'm the guy who's asked him for a photo.
Yeah.
I was just trying to capture it all because I thought this will end soon, this will end. Over COVID, I started taking photos because like everybody, I was very bored. And I think one of the first photos I took of you getting out of the car at my flat to drop me my birthday present, which was a painting that you'd done of somebody else and then you'd messed it up. So you changed it to me.
Yeah.
I got them back and was like, I loved it. Like there was something in like not knowing.
And what's the what's the difference from an iPhone?
Because you can see it immediately.
Yeah.
I can take a photo of you now and go,
yeah.
Whereas if I took my camera and took a photo of you, I won't see it for 3 weeks, and then I will almost forget about it. It's like finding tenner in your pocket.
That's a lovely way of looking at it. You're kind of banking future joy.
Yeah.
And future disappointment sometimes.
Like last night, I got an email and it was like, your photos are developed, here they are. And there's like 40 seconds where you're like, what's good in here? What are those things that everyone did at the Millennium? You put a Snickers and a CD in a box and you buried it.
Oh, time capsule.
It's like a little time capsule that cost you £25 ago.
Yeah, you did them differently in Worcester. A Snickers and a CD.
No, but you put like whatever the number one single was.
I just filled mine with bottles of Chateauneuf de Pape.
Yeah. And Gavi de Gavi.
Yeah.
And then you go and dig them up the following week.
Yes. Speaking of shit photos, let's have a look. This guy, Daniel Sloss.
The King Daniel. This is him outside the festival bar, and I think he might have had a drink, but he just sort of burst out of the festival bar and proceeded to take his t-shirt off and stare at me like that.
That's one thing that you definitely don't tend to get in iPhone photos particularly, is that sort of flashness. And it's such a crisp flash that you get from film photography, which is a sort of necessity, right? That's one thing.
Yeah.
I've not done loads of it, but if you don't use your flash, you generally end up
yeah,
with just
there was
black
a
blob.
big trial and error of like different cameras, different film, different cameras, different film.
Yeah.
A split frame camera from London Camera Exchange was my first one that I got really into using. I used to try and get like 5 good pictures out of a roll that I would go, oh, I like that. And I remember a guy who was in My Name is Earl, whose name I've forgotten, who was a skateboarder and now he's a photographer. But he said, when you take a photo, look through the lens and think, would I print that off? Because if you wouldn't, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the camera I've got now I just stick with. And this Ilford film that I use on a lot of stuff, I think just works. And I think the black and white does a lot of the heavy lifting artistically because it already adds a sort of sexy old schoolness to it.
What is the coolness though? I've often tried to sort of put my finger on why is film nicer?
It's like having a record, isn't it? You know there's effort. If you exclusively ate from the pound shop and you know it's just cheap tat or Primark.
There's no Primark?
If you ate from Primark,
you'd die.
You'd die. But they've got a Greggs now in the big one.
Speaking of Greggs, what is it about an old style car outside
Because
Greggs?
it's such a luxury, that car is loved.
Yeah.
And it is a luxury item, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that car says elegance and wealth. But someone has pulled in outside the Greggs and thought, yeah, I won't even put the top up.
Yeah.
I need to get a steak bake.
I mean, this is immediately nostalgic to me because there was a Greggs next to school and I used to have 2 sausage rolls and a steak bake. That was my lunch.
Wow. Every day?
Every day.
Wow. And I was going to call that picture like the offer for the sausage rolls where it's 4 for £3.
Do you name these photos then?
Some of them, if I'm asked to.
How would you name that? That's me eating a chicken on a stick.
I'd probably just call it something creative like Joe.
Wow. I think it's a lovely photo. I like what you've done with my cheekbones in it. But I immediately feel nervous. I feel like I've got to go on stage now. I've got all that sort of sense of.
Well, that's what I want to sort of capture. There's no way to describe touring.
No.
There are points like when we're like 6 months deep where I'll know if you're all right.
Yeah.
And I know what you'll need or what you're going to ask me before you've asked me.
Yeah.
But my favourite thing about it is we just go weird. We always called it day 4, where we just become so silly and ridiculous. That energy is unmatched for me in anything. Where like, you're going to go and do a show to how many thousand people? You know it all, you've got it all, but you've still got this like, and whoever the support is gets it. And we get it, and that's my favourite thing. I always try and take as many photos in there, that sort of 15-20 minute window.
That's interesting, because there's a lot like this one of Catherine Bohart.
Being very hysterical, getting ready.
Just before she's going on stage. This one of Sarah Barron, that's happening at a similar time, of me eating a Wagamama's just before I go on. Do you think some of it is your nerves coming out?
It's something to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than sort of thinking, is he going to explode tonight?
The beauty of photography for me is the fact that that moment has gone. You can't capture the feeling or the taste or the whatever, but you've captured something.
It's such a visual prompt. It's like with music and stuff. When you find a song that you love, you've got like an instant joy.
Yes.
That you can just tap back into. One of the places I was lucky enough to go to was New York. It's mad being there. There's a real sort of scariness to it and a vastness. It was like being in a film, so I just took photos of everything, and that is maybe the best photo I've ever taken.
What's fascinating about it is it's sort of timeless. You could have taken that photo in the 60s. You could have taken it yesterday.
A lot of the photos I take are by accident, and I sort of go, oh God, this is great.
It's an amazing photo. You do get that sense you're just capturing it. It's not sort of curated. Is this also New York, the Angel?
That's in New York. I came out of the Nike shop. They were doing some sort of photography thing. That's her getting onto the chair to take this photo of her dressed as an angel. And that's what I sort of loved about New York. You'll walk down the street and you'll find something so beautiful and peaceful, and it feels like you're in a film. And then you walk around the corner and there's a man. I saw a man pretending a child was a machine gun. When you go to Times Square, they've got people dressed as almost homemade children's character costumes, and they're awful. And they hound you. There's people like dressed as Transformers with cardboard boxes sort of glued to them. But you can also see them going and having cigarettes and checking their phones. So they're just pulling their masks up to like shout at each other, ask each other how they're getting on.
I think what it does for me is it explains the kind of chaos of capitalism. You know, these recognisable brands everywhere, but people not really playing by the rules of what they should be doing in those outfits. This backpack as well on Minnie
well,
Mouse
you
or
need
Mickey
to keep
Mouse.
your stuff on you.
It's all a bit sort of, chaotic. One of the things that I think we both get a lot of pleasure out of is, say, service station.
Well, we live in them. And I would like to say for the record that when you ask people what their favourite is and they say Gloucester, they can fuck off.
It's the obvious choice, isn't it?
It's the obvious choice, and it's not a service station, in my opinion.
No,
it's a farm shop.
Yeah.
I don't want a lasagna.
No.
I want to be at Beaconsfield. Lovely. I want to be at Keele.
Mm.
I want a burger. I want to see a man gambling.
The retail offerings in a lot of them are sort of extraordinary to me because I don't get it.
Rubber toys, a shark.
Yeah.
The pellet gun. Do you remember what you said to the man when you bought the pellet gun? You put a pellet gun on the counter and you said, "You think that's okay, do you? You think that's okay to sell firearms in a services?"
Yeah.
And this one's aimed at children.
Yeah.
And he just wouldn't. He would not engage with you. He was
not up for banter.
He kept going
and
going. You also bought me a pack of cards called Horse Sense. You can't play with them. They're just pictures of horses and then some sort of like start each day with a smile and then a picture of a Shetland.
How do you feel about having an exhibition?
I sort of don't think about it.
Yeah.
This was something I just did. It was never meant to be viewed. I did one mainly to please you.
Mm.
And I thought it would make you proud.
I'll let you know when I am. if and when.
If and when it happens.
Yeah. And this won't be your first exhibition, will it?
Correct. I did one in my hometown at the Artery Studios. Again, off of your encouragement to just do it. Once you've set a date and you do it, the pressure will just make you want to kill yourself.
Well,
Oh, no, do it. Yeah. I think it looked good. I enjoyed it.
We're back round to me pulling you out of the gutter and...
Pulling me out of the gutter. I wouldn't have backed myself to do anything. Until you backed me to do something. And I think I won't sort of believe it until it's up.
I think what's interesting is that you, as in people in the world, are quite happy to put photos on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter all the time. And they don't see necessarily that is essentially putting on an exhibition. But it does become different when you do it physically and you physically say, come to this place and look at things I have made.
It's adding a grandeur to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm saying, well, you've got Instagram. Well, I've got Elis James with his nips out. What have you got? A selfie in a mirror? No thanks.
You've got it, you know. I'd say you're in my top. Top.
I'm your top.
You're my top.
Thank you. I've been waiting years for you to say that. It'd be nice to swap roles.
Well, I personally am very excited to see the exhibition. Ross Kemp, it's been a pleasure chatting.
Thank you.